Are we live? Uh-oh. All right, can y'all hear me? Okay. It was being difficult tonight. Did not want to be nice to me at all. Okay, how is everyone doing? Hopefully, everyone had a reasonable week. I know a few of you had a rough week. That's why I said reasonable. Hopefully, we've managed to make the best of it anyway. I, on this end, can honestly say I have had a crazy week. It's just been nonstop go, 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 one thing after the other. Whoa, comments are coming in like crazy. Okay. Let's see. All right. Halloween, welcome. Alex Vance was here earlier but had to go to bed. Totally cool. Get some sleep, man. Zizo, welcome. TC, good to see you. Occult, good to see you. It has been a while, man. Peachy, of course, you're here. So, are you asking if I have one or if it's possible? It is possible. It is. Oh, Mathis, you made it. And yes, we are actually a third of the way there. In fact, on my way to log in, it said we had 1,670 subs. So that 5K by Samhain challenge is looking very good. So I will have to update my wife and let her know that she will probably have to have some costume ideals ready. Um, but yeah, it's actually possible to have a plaid or plaid like aura, anyways. Um, but it is possible to have strapped energies moving through your aura that's going to look plaid. Now, if my sister, unlikely, but if my sister was watching this, she's like uber, like fashion designer picky. And apparently, plaid has a very distinct pattern, so it's not just a checkered color pattern. So, but it is possible to have a plaid like one. So, yeah, very, very possible. Now, this week I've actually been spending a lot of time again working with the Norse. As many of you probably saw, the ruler of spirit, she okayed her artwork this week, so I have been working with her some, and that's available on the merch shop now. And I've been working a little bit more with the Fae, trying to get more input on them to share with you all. So that's been a lot of fun. It has been a busy week. Well, Halloween, actually, yeah, quite a few. In the infernal realms, there's several entities that have their own forces. The same with the angelic realms. Um, Many deities definitely do, and some you hear about them in myths. Obviously, Odin and his Einherjar. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, but the warriors and soldiers of Valhalla. Um, the warriors that Freya gets because she gets half of the fallen. So she has her own forces. And I know the goddess Hel has her own forces. So, and the Jotun, um, I'm wanting to say, well, I know Hades has forces. So I would venture to guess most of the other Olympians have some kind of a force as well. Evening, Samuel. Good to see you, man. Mathis, I'm not real sure on that one. I'll be honest. I've heard different theories. Um, Everything from your mom was scared by something that looks like the birthmark to it's an injury that killed you in a past life. But I have not been able to get any of these to continually stand up enough to say that that's true. I'm pretty sure the one about scaring you just ain't happening. But as far as past lives, that does pan out sometimes. It really does. I have noticed certain individuals do have birthmarks where one of their past lives were injured in that spot. It may not be their previous one. You may have to go back a ways. Um, but then again, that's kind of scattershot in a little bit. So I'm not real sure where I stand on that. I've not really locked it down one way or the other. If you're wanting to know, did I ever figure out their names? No. I have seen the Lady of the Dark Fae in passing, but still have not took the time to talk to her because my attention was elsewhere at the time. Actually, no, I'm still working on that too. I've been so busy with the other things like getting the Dragon Magic 102 class filmed. Um, and I have been working somewhat with the Fae to get information for starter, which, let's be honest, the ladies would not fall under starter. That there's a lot of things that I've got on my I want to get this done list and just have not been able to get to it. Hey, Merrick, good to see you. Welcome. But that is one thing I love about these streams is you guys ask questions. So there's things I never think about that you all ask, and then it's like I should really look into that. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. I'm at a point where it's like I need to take a vacation so I can work on that. That's actually a really good question, Halloween. And I'll be honest with you, when I work with the Fae, I actually do go through the dragons to work with them. That's how I initially met them, and that's usually how I continue to access them. So I really do open those rituals with the dragon flame ritual. Um, but I do know how to access it via the Norse realms as well, because both the Vanir realm and the realm of the Light Elves connects to the Fey realms easily. And I suspect uh, the realm of the Dark Elves does too. I just haven't actually dove into that one just yet. But so those are usually the access points I use. So an actual Fey ritual at this time I do not have. But if the path working happens and is laid out the way the Fey Queens are wanting, they're going to have to give me something to go on. Mathis, that really depends on which one you're in. In most cases, and it also depends on what you're talking about. When we talk about realms or planes that would represent different beliefs version of hell, it would differ from that belief to that belief. And largely the one that represents that particular belief system really does reflect it in many, many ways. When we say infernal realms, that's usually used broadly to mention anything that would fall under those chaotic entities most people might refer to as demons. And their realms are as varied as any of the others. Some of them can be barren, some of them can be very lush and prosperous. It really depends on the ruling beings in the area at the time. They're tremendously diverse and fascinating. They're not what you would expect. I know the first time I dove into them, I was expecting, oh God, the nerd in me, like cities of brass and stone and fire and, that kind of crap, stupid me, back when I was a wee bit of a lad. And then you get in there and they're very lush and sophisticated. There's, metropolises, there's forests, there's lakes. And some of them are very much that goofy sounding fiery landscape. Some of them are, but not all of them. And considering how vast it is, I would almost have to say, if you can think it, there's probably one to fit it. Yes, the contents and outline for 102 is set. We're actually already filming it. So there's only one decision the rulers are debating, and it's up to them. I have the outline as it stands, and I'm presuming it's going to stay there. But the only thing that is outstanding is something that can be added on to the current outline with no change at all. So it's just a matter to what the rulers finalize on that one decision, which would, I think it would add 1 or 2 sections to the class, but wouldn't change it too much at all. So yeah, it's pretty much finalized. And once the rulers basically cut me off the hook here because they're just leaving me dangling on that one thing, everything will be finalized. And part of me thinks they already know which way they're going. They just kind of enjoy playing with me. That's the thing about making friends with these entities. They like to joke with you as much as we like to joke with each other. But yeah, it's finalized. We know what the content's going to be. The big focuses are going to be on draconic alchemy, astral evocation, and learning to work with specialty dragons as well as locate, find, and meet specialty dragons. Those are going to be the big main focuses to build on for this next coming class, which are major concepts in dragon magic that needs to be learned. I have not seen that movie, Mathis. If y'all can't tell, I don't watch a lot of movies. I will say this, occult, we have a tentative launch date of mid-September for it. So if you do all the working in the 101 class as it's laid out, you should have very little rest time between the two. Maybe a few weeks to a month at most. But if you count the staff ritual, yeah, you'll pretty much sell right from one to the other. So they're keeping me busy. They are keeping me busy. That is for sure. And well, yeah. Last night it was. I'm pretty sure I spent a good chunk of time with the Maelstrom ruler because we had to get her information and everything to get her artwork started. So there was that whole fun little shabacle. And she was very specific in certain details, and I had to find a way to get that communicated to the artist. And that's just for the kickoff. I can't wait till we actually start fine tuning it. This one's going to be fun. She may end up being the pickiest one yet. So Angus may have to turn over the title of pickiest dragon for art. So, no, great questions, though. And I am glad so many people's excited about the 102 course. And I've been getting a lot of compliments and emails about the information for Dragon Magic that's on the site and in the classes. So I'm great to see it helping so many people. Hey, Lauren, no worries. We just started up a few minutes ago. And dinner's important. Dinner's real important. Don't you worry about that. We're good to have you here now. So, and I actually called the internet. They're not planning to do any maintenance or anything, so we shouldn't have a debacle like last week. So, oh Lord, I got asked this question the other day, but I would actually have to go back into my journals to get the exact date for when I officially moved into researching and studying magic specifically. But the spiritual realms, the metaphysics, and stuff like that, I really have studied it my whole life because I did grow up in the church, but I always had a mind for science. So I never had faith. It was always, I need an answer for this. I need an answer for this. I need an answer for this. So I was always reading the literature, the lore, and looking it up, going to the library because back then we didn't have internet. And I was pulling the different documents on archaeological finds and stuff like that. Different viewpoints, of course, Solomon. I was fascinated with him. He's listed as one of the greatest magicians in history, which, of course, led me to different Arthurian legends and Merlin. So really, I was studying it all my life and getting the concepts down and even gaining an understanding of how it actually applied to just the way energy works in the universe. And then I want to say it's around the age of 23 is when I officially dove in headlong and decided, let's see how far I can push this. And that's when my life flipped upside down on that one, and I just started going a completely different direction. But the foundation and everything I'd learned completely helped me So I wasn't coming in blind or ignorant. I knew quite a deal of the mindset and the philosophies behind it. It really is a good age. You've gotten through that pesky puberty period, which, let's be honest, the energy of magic can really mess with that time period in your life and make it worse than it's already going to be. You've made enough mistakes and got an idea of what adulthood might be like. And you're pretty good at least pretending you're an adult. So yeah, it's a pretty good time to, change tracks and, get on a new path. I'm lucky that my wife, she pretty much had been thinking the same thing I had. So when I told her, it's like, hey, this is what I'm wanting to do. And she actually was like, that I've been thinking the same thing. Let's do it. So I was really blessed in that way. And even though my practice and my research definitely is more hardcore than hers, I'm blessed that she supports it in every way. Even my doing this channel, we actually owe her quite a bit for that, because she was one of the ones that said I'm a better speaker than I am trying to communicate via writing. So if I could just get it into video classes or even go on YouTube, I could communicate the information far easier. And she was right. Yeah, she's actually one of the only people I know of in my life that I haven't managed to piss off. We lucked out. We actually understand each other really well. uh, Merrick, I can try to help you best I can. Whether you're comfortable asking the question here, you want to private message me on Discord, up to you. Though I will say I do have an appointment after the research and ramblings this evening that I need to go talk to somebody about something. So, but if you drop it in Discord, I will get to it. I promise. Or if you ask it here, again, that's totally up to you. I don't want to force someone to, share something on a public feed. So great questions, definitely. Hey, Steve, good to see you, man. Well, Steve's got my number. No, I don't smoke. Not that I have anything against it. I'm actually for it, pro wise, but I have done quite a bit of research because I know a lot of magicians who do, and naturally, I'm curious about different things. So, what I have found is that there is a point where it does help you relax. And because it can help you relax, it can help you get into that trance state of mind, where magic is actually the most efficient. But the hard part is you have to get to that state with enough for you, because every person's different. It's not like this dosage works for everybody. without going past it. Because if you go past it, you start losing focus as you relax. Therefore, you actually start diminishing your connections. So it can be very helpful. It's just, it can be hard to dial in exactly. And I personally don't know of any way to know exactly what one person's tolerance levels will be over another. Now, that said, publicly speaking, if you're in a state where it's not legal, don't do it. If you're underage, don't do it. Standard stuff. Not saying anyone should go do it. This is strictly, viewpoint of research and science. So, but yeah, I know I'm required to give the disclaimers. Sounds familiar, Merrick. It really does. I'm not really placing it, but it does sound familiar. And it's actually kind of bugging me because it sounds real familiar. I don't know. No, that can't be where I know it from. I'm going to have to look that one up, Merrick, because right now my brain's telling me it relates to D&D somehow, and that's just cheesy. Oh, well, I used to play World of Warcraft, so that might be where I know it. So not too far off of D&D. Yeah, I mean, not denying it's useful. Like I said, it's just tricky to get that number dialed in. What do you mean your power's slipping? Because my first guess is to take a look at your aura and see if you don't need to do a little energy cycling or cleansing on the aura to make sure you're not bleeding out any excess energy. And if you're having trouble meditating, check out my video on overcoming meditation hurdles. But for general exercises, I would say energy cycling, which it's a meditation exercise where you do whatever ritual you would normally do to set up, or you can just do it for the general energy in the area if you want. And you feel yourself completely to the point of bursting with that energy. And then as it cascades down over you, you start pulling it back in. So you're just constantly cycling it through you. Hmm. Um, I'd have to look into that one, Mortimer. I would. One thing that some people find is that it's not that you're not moving the energy, it's just you're not feeling it because you're at the point where you need to start moving more energy. But I'm going to guess that's not what you're meaning. Yeah, I really don't know on that one, Merrick. I don't. Like I said, the name sounded familiar, but it seems it overlaps Warcraft and D&D. So I do know they pull a lot of their lore from other places, so I can't knock it out completely. But I wouldn't know where to start to place it at this moment without going and doing some research on it. That is Forgotten Realms. D&D and Forgotten Realms, yeah, same thing. For those nerds out there, it's a campaign setting in D&D. Oh yeah, the weekly challenge. I've been getting a lot of questions on how to improve meditation, and I actually had someone kick an idea for a weekly challenge at me, which I'd been considering. So I thought it would be great to go ahead and do it. And the ideal of this is this one's a little simpler than the unplug for 8 hours that y'all complained about. But I want you to do your meditation this week in a distracted method. Probably do it every other day, so at least you're getting some good solid meditation. But I want you to do it in a distracted state, whether it's loud music, loud environment, something that would normally distract you from meditation. Because ideally, in our practice, we should learn to master our focus so that really a meditation environment is you can meditate when you need to, not when you have the perfect environment and location. So this week, I actually want everyone to step out of that comfort zone, go to an area that you would not normally deem effective for meditation, and try to do some of your meditating there to help build your focus and strengthen those meditative muscles. And the focus will pay off hugely, because the more focus you have, the better your magic's going to work in the long term. Well, see, you're one day ahead there, honey. The good news about this one is, though, since you're needing to be distracted, you can literally use your electronic devices this time. If you work with any entities, Mortimer, I would speak with them if you can. I have had instances where certain areas of Magick were doors were shut to force me to work in other areas to build myself up. And once I did that, though, all the doors were thrown back open. Many of you know that the Norse pathworking I did a few years back, that whole year required me to focus only in Norse magic, which was hard because I could not go to the dragons and utilize the magic I knew so well to manifest and get things done. So it could be something similar. And talking to the entities you work with, whether it's guides, deities, whatever it is you work with, dragons, that would be your best place to start to find out what's going on. That, and just do a general scan of your own energy and see if there's any form of bindings or anything like that on you, and do an unbinding spell. But after you take a look at your energy and speak with your the entities you work with, Mortimer, reach out to me over on Discord in private message and let me know what you find, and we'll see if we can't decipher it better. And so, yeah. It very well could be training wheels for that. And one of the reasons is I've seen a lot of people go into evocation and they do the evocation, they work with the spirit, they get the spirit to help them, and then they wander off and do other spell work to make the same thing happen. So at the end of the day, they don't know if it ever worked or not because which one actually manifested what. And honestly, a lot of spirits can get a little annoyed if you ask them to do something and then you run off and do it yourself anyway. It's like, why are you wasting my time? So yeah, it could be the training wheels there. They're just making sure you know you take your time, you get the manifestations and the proof you need to progress at a good rate. That's why it's a hard one to answer. There's so many directions and possibilities it could go. No problem. Good question, actually. It's not something you run into a lot, but it's always good to talk about it when it pops up. Okay. Any more questions? I will say we almost have the runic magic class ready to start filming. Pretty much the only thing delaying its filming right now is how much is going into just the dragon magic class. And I don't want to overextend myself and screw up one of the classes. But the runic magic class is coming. They don't mind knives. I mean, the knife can work in place of a sword just fine. And like I said, honestly, the dragons, they don't seem to really care what tool you carry. That's something Conway actually pulled largely from ceremonial magic. I mean, they don't mind if you have them, obviously, but yeah, they enjoy them and they do enjoy knives. In fact, Ingus Salor, he's dug through my knife collection more times than I can count. One that I inherited from my mentors, his favorite. Halloween, that's a good question, and that's a tricky one. There's a lot of people who disagree, but I honestly will say yes because I've seen cases where it very much did appear the familiar and the spirit guide were very much the same entity. I didn't have long extended contact with the person where that was the case. So I can't tell what the long terms were. I don't know if the spirit guide left or what, but at the time the familiar was acting as a spirit guide as well. So it was really an interesting scenario to run into. But in my research and looking at how they function, anything's possible. So I would say, yeah, it is possible. Do you have to use candles and incense? No, you do not. They can make it easier. Um, the main thing candles do, um, if you want to associate the candle color with the spirit in some way through correspondence, you can. But the main thing they really do is the low light setting of sitting in a room, a dark room with just candlelight, helps with that trance state, which is where your astral senses are at their highest. And because of that, it makes the evocation process easier. Incense, again, it raises that ritual state and it helps to move you into that state of something special happening here. So it increases the trance state. But it also gives them, the smoke in the air actually gives their energy something to latch onto, which allows for a stronger manifestation and can make them easier to perceive. I've heard this sometimes referred to as a manifestation base. I'm not entirely sure where the concept of that came from, but it's literally what's in the air that they're attaching their energy to. And in my testing, it works because I would go to places where the water in the river would just be spewing up a constant mist or a waterfall. And you could utilize that mist as that manifestation base in place of the incense, which for me was freaking awesome. I loved it. If you find a location like that and you're into evocation, you should definitely give it a shot sometime. Though make sure you are okay being wet, because with that much mist in the air, you're coming out soaked. But I love the water, so it was great for me. You can actually, if you live in a place that gets real foggy, that real dense, like horror movie fog, we get it here in the South, you can utilize that for evocation too. That's some of my favorite times to do evocation, when we get those heavy fogs. Freaking awesome. Sorry, I nerded out on that question just a little bit. I'll behave now. Hey, can servant eat? Well, sorta. I mean, familiars are a bit more independent than a lot more independent than a servitor. And you don't want to become overly attached to a servitor because you need that kill command just in case something goes sideways. But aside from those 2 points, the magician could view a servitor as a familiar. Not in the traditional sense, but could. Nothing wrong with that. Exactly. Steve's right. You need no actual materials but the magician. Everything you add to a ritual other than yourself is an assistant. It's simplifying it to some extent. It's helping you to anchor energy and reduce the amount of raw focus that might be needed. That's why I try to get my students to use as little tools as possible, because I want them to be able to do magic when they need it, not when they have the tools or the place. They are freaking cool. I got a few that I've inherited, and I did take sword fighting for a few years. So there's a few of them lying around the house, including some of my old sparring swords. I might do that at some point. I might. There you go, Mortimer. And you're right. Actually, swords are shiny. Dragons love shinies. Definition of evocation would be when you summon up an entity in order to have a external communication with it. So it's a communication outside of yourself. Whereas invocation is more often looked at as summoning an entity and having the conversation internally. So the entity's actually energetically overlapping you in some way. Hey, I've seen some pretty fog down in Mississippi. In fact, I remember camping along the Mississippi. We were out there catfishing, and I woke up, and it was the coolest thing. You could see the river running and the fog sitting on the river. Nowhere else, just sitting on the river and going right along with it. That was one of the cooler atmospheric effects of weather I've seen. That was freaking awesome. Evening, Rouse. Good to see you. Uh, well, smudging's not a bad way to start, though you want to make sure you pull in energy to replace the negative. My personal favorite, go to my channel, look at the Dragon's Flame ritual. You'll notice in the callings on that ritual, it says cleanse, protect, and empower. You're literally bringing those flames down on you. And when it says cleanse, they're burning away all the crap. So if there's any astral nasties, parasitic entities, you name it, they will get nuked in the fire. And then the fire is also going to help build a layer of protection as well as replace energy and empower you in the process. That is my go-to as a dragon magic practitioner. You could also use if you're familiar with it, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which runs on the same prospects. But if you don't have any problems working with dragons, I definitely recommend the Dragon's Flame ritual that we covered on the channel and demoed. So you got plenty of fog to have some fun with there. Yeah, you could do that actually. That's actually a good point, Peachy, because I know one individual who uses trance work, and when they need to get rid of parasitic entities in their aura, they literally do trance work to journey to like a volcano or something and go swimming in the lava to burn them off. So, yeah. Take it easy, Hellcat. Well, either she can do it herself because you don't have to work with dragons just to do the Dragon Flame ritual. But in the case of this, let's say she doesn't want to do it, you could do the ritual with her in the ritual space. And instead of you being the target of where the flames are coming down, make her the target. And therefore, the ritual's working on her. Though you might want to make sure you have her permission. I'm not sure how the dragons would go if you didn't. Every time I've ever done it for someone, they've always known about it, so I don't know. Then again, she might look at you weird if you stand up and start doing a ritual. You know, she's reading a book, so I don't know how the relationship swings. You know, you got to deal with those factors. But yeah. Hold on. What? Raven from Teen Titans, say a little chant, and then just. I've never seen Teen Titans. I know the character Raven from other comic sources, but the description of what you're describing could work in a magical sense if you're gathering energy. But I don't want to equate it to Raven because, again, I've not seen the source in which you're pulling from. TC protection, and you could even use it for warding magic, and in some cases attack magic, definitely, because thorns like that are definitely good. Basically, consider anything that you could use a nail or a spike for. Those could double as a natural alternative. Um, you know, I actually have different orbs and crystals that I use for evocation. Yeah, there's an obsidian one and a clear crystal one back there. Um, I find them to work really well. Onyx and obsidian, though, I find they actually tend to absorb the energy so much that they almost ground it out. So once you get them working, they work really well. They're just harder to get to work. Lavender I've never used. I really don't. I'm not a big crystal collector. I'm a cheapskate, and I know a lot of people love to buy their crystals and decorate their home. Most of the crystals I have, I either bought for a specific purpose or someone gave to me. And I don't think I have a piece of lavender. That said, different crystals have given me different results throughout the years, and it's been fun to test them. One of my best scrying spheres, though, is pretty much a chunk of marble. It's a gray and black kind of swirled marble. And the shop I got it at, she just couldn't sell it. And I told her I'd give her $5 for it. And I hadn't looked at the price yet, and she took it. Got in the car, she had originally had it priced at like $40, so clearly she didn't want it. But to my knowledge, marble has no association with scrying, but it works. So I would test out different things and see what works best for you. When it comes to scrying, my go-to is just a mirror that I've made myself with spray paint and a picture frame. I get the hands down best results for scrying from that. Or water. Those are the two that me personally I get the best results from. Huh? Oh, my flaming decanter. There's actually like an electric candle behind the whiskey decanter doing that. I actually set that down on accident one day and caught my eye, and I was like, that looks freaking awesome. So it's just kind of been floating around back there. Get some sleep, Colt. Yeah, a lot of those chants will work because most of your chants and incantations, the repetition is really more about letting your mind sink into that state again and direct it. So it doesn't even really need to have a lot of meanings. I don't know if either, I don't know if that one or the one from Jackie Chan. I don't even know the one from Jackie Chan. I never watched that. Love his movies. Never saw his cartoon. I don't know if they have any meaning, purpose, or if they come from any sources. But they, yeah, I have no doubts they work really well. I have used Rainbow Moonstone for scrying. It works pretty good. It really does. It can get pricey, but it works good. Yeah, my meditation stone is my go-to is usually amethyst. I've been told I shouldn't use amethyst only because amethyst opens you up too much. Well, it ain't hurt me yet. Famous last words, right? But we all know, we all know my way of practice. Jump in, and if I get smacked hard by something, then we regroup. Until I get smacked, I ain't regrouping. But if I ever get smacked because of my amethyst, there's going to be a lot of people who's going to be like, "Told you so," and I think they're waiting. Oh, I love amethyst. I really do. The very first crystal I ever bought all those years ago was an amethyst point. And I still have that very same amethyst point to this day. Well, that makes sense. Writers tend to do the research on a lot of stuff these days. I have some rose quartz. I enjoy rose quartz. I think obsidian is the thing I have the most of. That and clear quartz, because clear quartz is my go-to because it's just programmable. It's a blank slate that I can program for anything. Uh, Honestly, and people's going to hate me saying this, not really. Birthstones are pretty much based on cultural tradition. That's the reason, depending on the culture, the stones swap around so much so easily. Um, and I can tell you right now, Aquarius, we get shafted every time. Because traditionally, an Aquarius is a pinky purple stone. And yeah, why couldn't I get something cool like a nice ruby, garnet, or onyx, something like that? Nope. You get the pinkish purple one. Though people accuse us of being the most thoughtful, intellectual, perhaps psychotic mentally. So I'll take that as a win. Kind of the same thing as the original topic, Mathis, only those you need to be far, far, far more careful with. In fact, I cannot recommend those in any level. But yes, there are certain cultures and traditions who have used them and who have gotten them to work as a beneficial tool. But there is a real science behind them. And those can actually get somewhat dangerous. So those are something that personally, from my viewpoint, I wouldn't recommend under any levels, because anything that causes that much alteration, the magician should consider. Which, it's always good to master yourself without an external. That's should be always your goal. But yeah, no, those are ones. Traditionally, there are cultures that have used them and they have shown to work. But my personal opinion is something in that level of alteration, I wouldn't use it. You're the second person to say that this week, Mortimer. Hey, Miss Eats Tarot, good to see you. And my problem with TV is I sit down, I get bored, my brain starts moving, and I got to do something. I can't just sit down and watch TV. I'm not good at it. That's a slight consolation. Yeah, that's a slight consolation. Well, one thing I've noticed is like amethyst. Every time you see amethyst on a birthstone chart, it's like as far pink as you can go. Whereas I've never seen it listed in its deep purples. Like if people would just associate Aquarius's birthstone with that deep, gorgeous royal purple style amethyst, I'd be a bit more okay with it. I don't even know what Westworld is. Sky. Yeah, I've played a lot of Skyrim. It's one of my time wasters when I want to challenge myself and try something. I'll come up with some stupid random challenge and try to create a character and see how far I can get. So it's just one of those games where the replay value it's nice. And see, the only time I can really sit down and watch them is if it's some topic that I'm really interested in researching, or it's something so stupid that I can zone out and just laugh at it, or I'm sitting there with a friend or someone and we're spending that time together. Otherwise, I get bored and wander off. So, yeah, see, Lauren, you get it. I mean, it's just one of those games. You just cue it up, come up with a random concept, create something, and see if it'll work. So, I mean, for Christmas, I got Breath of the Wild, which I was unsure how I would like that, but that was an addictive little game. Well, as far as occupying my hands, I actually tend to shuffle cards. It's the old gambler in me. I usually have a deck of cards nearby. In fact, I think there's two in my desk right here. Yep. And this is an old deck. Me and this deck have been through a lot together. I keep hearing a lot about that. And if I get a chance, I'm wanting to check out American Gods. I really am. I've heard a lot of things about it. I've heard it ticked a lot of people off, but it's like it's a modern show. They're going to change the lore for entertainment purposes. You can't expect them to just follow the lore. Steve, that's a good question. And I really don't know. I would say it's a possibility, but Egyptian is an area I do not work in a lot. Me and those deities do not get along well because most of them, Ra especially, they all about the worship. And I am completely anti-worship. So we just don't jive well. And there's nothing wrong with them wanting worship. It's just I won't be working with them. And for those people who do, no big. I know a lot of Egyptian magicians who do well. But, that might be something I want to talk to the dragons about and find out more because, yeah, it's very possible. I mean, I've not encountered anything that any grouping dragons haven't worked with at some level. But I also can't say yes for sure. Lauren, you aren't kidding when you use the word addictive. And visually, it is absolutely gorgeous. Although I fell off a mountain screaming, trying to run away from one of the dragons when I first saw one because I thought it was chasing me. No one told me that they just lazily move around, and I'd never seen a dragon that big on a video game. That was some crazy stuff. But yes, Breath of the Wild is addictive. Now, see, for shooters, Doom 2016 is my go-to. I'm old school, so old school traditional Doom style gameplay. Grab your gun and blast your way through. That is some good stuff to me. So when they did Doom 2016 and went back to the old formula, oh, kid and a candy store. Animal Man, I'm not 100% sure. That's actually some part of what I'm researching now. The most that I do know is that two entities that I don't have good names for at this point. They're just most often referred to as the dragon and the dragoness, which in a lot of ways exist outside of what we know as reality. Those are the two possibly first dragons. And all the rulers and everything fall under them in some way. Where they came from, I have no clue. But even those two dragons refuse to be referred to as deities or gods. So, great question, deep question, but I seriously, outside those two entities, which I'm just now really starting to work directly with after all these years, which a ritual to contact those two will be in the 104 class, but I'm just now getting into the area where I might be able to start asking those questions. Now, that said, if you look at the way some things appear to be set up, you can theorize and guess, which we all know I'm not big on that. But if you look at, what we refer to mostly as demons, but the more chaotic entities, and then you look at the celestials, the angels, the more order-based entities, then dragons would fall into that neutral point between the two. I would say that these three parts coexist for a reason. I can't prove it, but that is my current standing theory at this point. And as to which one came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. I really don't. I'm hoping to get some answers to these questions soon, now where I'm at. There's a lot of cultures believe in reincarnation. So, yeah, Egyptians don't have a monopoly on it. And from what I understand of the multiverse, it's not a religion thing either. Your soul can reincarnate with or without their approval. And see, Mathis, I agree with that. That's kind of me. When I approach any entity, it's as an equal with respect. We can be friends or we can't. And I let them make that decision. And Lauren, are you laughing at me running away from those dragons? Yep, you are. You are. But if you haven't accidentally fell off a mountain in that game, you're not playing the game right. Let's be honest. Okay, you got a point. Mortimer, you got it. But you're chilling, you're relaxed, and you turn a corner and there's a freaking dragon head like that big coming at you. And it's so easy to die in that game. Your first reaction is turn and run. And that's what I did. Unfortunately, instead of turning a 180 and running down the path I thought was there, I only got halfway around and ran right off the mountain. And then gravity took over and I was dead. Now, you want to know a big time sink for me? Well, earlier this year for sure, but I haven't played it in a while. Sims. I can sink a lot of time into Sims. That's a great question, Halloween. And from my understanding of how soul reincarnation works, in some respects, yes, but in others, I think the process just restarts unless they've learned whatever it is they need to learn and they've progressed where they need to progress. Or the person's found a way to remove themselves from the reincarnation cycle, which I guess at that point you learned what you needed to learn and you got off the train anyway. It's like the sections of soul can reach an end and then they just restart, if that makes sense. Yeah, I was playing, is it Sims 4? Earlier this year? So, I mean, it's a great game. You just create something, come up with some stupid plot, and just see if you can make it happen. So, again, it's kind of like Skyrim's of life simulators. It's just random games like that just have great replay value to me because you can create your own challenges and make it difficult or humorous if you want. So, yeah. If I have free time, those tend to be where I wander off to. Although, as an old school Final Fantasy VII junkie, I am looking at getting the remake to that, but I won't be playing it until my wife gets home. Because I was playing Final Fantasy VII back when it first came out and me and her met. So that's kind of a us thing. So she enjoys watching me play games like that. Otherwise, I'd have probably already got lost in that game. So fair warning, if I come up missing for a month or two, just know it's probably Final Fantasy VII. I got lost in the video game world and forgot to come back. No clue on that one, Halloween. To the best of my knowledge at this moment, the genetics and the soul are not connected in any way. But I've not done enough deep research to confirm that well enough to say for sure. Because I have noticed there seem to be certain patterns of soul pieces as they reincarnate tend to be attracted to one another. Maybe not genetically, but they tend to reoccur in one another's lives for one reason or another. And people's like, oh, it's because of love. No, it ain't, because I've actually seen soul pieces that enjoy tormenting each other do the same thing. So you can literally be a laugh after laugh after laugh asshole. So there does seem to be some correlation there. And I don't know if genealogy and genetics play any part in that at all. But as most people who study any data will tell you, correlation does not mean causation either. So, but that's actually one area I would like to dive into more, or find someone who has, because surely somebody out there is doing research other than me. Come on, people. I'm one idiot. Don't leave it all to me. So, oh, my Final Fantasy VII thing, Tara. Oh, roughly 23 is when I started my main focus on it. But I've studied magic, energy work, and everything that most of my life. So, and it's really kind of funny because I grew up in a spiritual, well, I should say church home, but because I have a mind of science, I was just naturally asking the questions. I was never a person of faith. And if you look at it, what I was doing all the way back then at like age 4 is the exact same concepts I apply to my magic today. So it depends on how you look at it. Technically, one could say anywhere from 2 to 4 years old, or when I officially made the conscious decision to study magic, which is somewhere around 23. But I mean, it's pretty much been in my life and being studied and applied one way or the other my whole life. This one, okay, thank you. You finally threw one at me I've actually looked something into. And benefit over others, not really. You can work with any pantheon that you can relate to and befriend and build a relationship with. The only benefit, if there is one, is actually a two-edged sword. Because if you have an ancestral pantheon, your ancestral line and how the pantheon views it could impact that. So let's say your ancestral line and that pantheon get along great. Well, that could make it easier to build those relationships and those friendships. But let's say you were the ones who were known for, causing all the problems, getting drunk at the parties, pissing on the floor. They're not going to think highly of you. In which case, yes, you could still work with them, but you're going to have to prove to them, you're not a ruckus causer, and you can work a little better. So it could actually work both ways, where it might be harder to actually work your way in and befriend a ancestral pantheon. Yeah, I know a lot of people regret it. I do not, because it afforded me a lot of theological and spiritual understanding that I was able to take over into other areas. Once you separate it from the general dogma, it's just the same horse in a different color. TC, you got a very, very good point there. I mean, there's nothing to say that each little incarnated piece of what is, because the soul is ultimately too massive to be contained in these little meat suits, but each of those pieces could simultaneously be doing their shtick at once. That's totally plausible. Totally. And it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Because you study magic long enough, well, you get into journey work. I mean, early in journey work, you quickly find out time isn't locked into a linear pattern because you can pop back and forth through it. So, yeah. And it's very possible to pop back in time and talk to the other you. So, yeah, I mean, that makes total sense to me. Yes. There's what's referred to as soul fragments as far as an injured soul. Oh, pre-birth. Oh, pre-birth. I've not encountered this other than trauma during life breaking off pieces, in which case that's where we get the process of soul retrieval. But pre-birth, no, I've not encountered that. Yeah, and see, there are cases where your ancestral line may draw you to a certain mythology and grouping of entities because of it, like Scottish to Fae. Like I was drawn to work with the Norse long before I knew I was of any Germanic descent. And then as just a fun little kicks and giggles kind of thing, we did the ancestry. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like 80% or better. My family originated all in the Nordic lands. So that was a little interesting for me. But before I was working with the Norse, I had begun working with the Greeks. So, you know, see, Ms. Weeds, I wouldn't be guilty because we are individuals. We are more than our genetics. A lot of people really get hung up on that genetics, but we are far more than that. And you should follow the path that calls to you. And if that's Norse, if that's Egyptian, you should look into it. You should study it. You should learn about it. Because you may start researching it and be like, well, change my mind. But you may start researching it and find like you have just come home. Because I did. I avoided Norse research for a long time. And even when I started working with Odin and Freya, I still avoided a good chunk of the research. But when I did that path working, even as restrictive as it was when I did it, I don't know. It just every piece of it just felt familiar and right. It was a type of magic I just knew. And it's not really, and I asked about the genealogy in it. And Odin made it very clear it's not genetics, it's just who you are. The system itself makes sense to you, it resonates with you. And that's really important in my mind is to find that system of magic that resonates with you instead of trying to force yourself into an area you think you belong. Does that make sense? But never feel guilty about feeling drawn to something. Because if there's one thing I have learned, if family is true, if you're happy, they ain't gonna give a shit. because my family had trouble adjusting to my lifestyle of choice. But I can honestly say today, they don't care. Yeah, I'm sure one or two of them probably still prays for me at night to find Jesus. But if they would stop losing him, then I wouldn't have to find him now, would I? So that's their problem. Mortimer, I have on occasion. Some of them, they enjoy it. Some of them, not too fond of certain portrayals. But I'm actually going to attempt to start a series where I cover an entity in depth, going into their specific myths and lore. And I'm even wanting to read some of the myths, if I can, during the video. And then I'm actually going to go in, do evocation, where I work with the entity specifically and talk to them and how they work and view and exist in the modern world. Because most people bring the entities up to the end of mythology and that's it. It's like the entity got off the train and never grew further. And working with these entities, I found out that is the farthest thing from the truth. Like Odin often appears to me in a gray suit with a hat. Still has his eye patch, but he is very modern. He didn't just get off the train way back when. He's still been doing his thing. And granted, those will be a Gnosis-based video series, but I think it would be fun to share that what the entities are like in the modern world through that Gnosis. I know it's a little different than pop culture, but kind of in the same realm. So I have a video, Magick's Tarot, coming out. I want to say it's next month, where I detail the hailing rite that you all have been asking me about for so long. And I walk through it and talk about all the different hailing calls that I use during the ritual. And there's a very specific one in there where I call to my ancestors to honor my ancestors, good and bad, because like it or not, even the ones that screwed up, we stand on their mistakes and the lessons learned from their mistakes. So, you know, we are the product of those lessons learned, both success and failures. And I think it's good to honor that. And I do some ancestor work. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing. I group all my ancestors into one giant group. I don't separate them either. I don't care what religion you are. You're my ancestor. Cool. Let's get together and have a drink. And people find it weird. I have no problem doing evocation work with Jesus. I mean, I like his style. His first miracle was turning water into wine just to keep the party going. Me and his dad don't get along too well, but yeah. Centaurs. I encounter those a lot in the Fey realms. So I would say if you're wanting to work with centaurs, start trying to connect with the Fey. And that's one reason I'm trying to get more Fey videos out, is because people's like, how do I do that? So, you know, we're starting on like got one coming out on how to work with them in your home, things like that. But we are going to talk about in nature. And it is true. I've seen Fae in urban environments. They love urban environments. But I don't think I've encountered any centaurs in urban environments. But then that's not something I paid a lot of attention to. Now, your other option might be to look into Greek mythology, because there's a lot of centaurs that pop up there. So you could kind of backdoor into it that way, which might be easier to contact them, really. But reaching out to them specifically is not something I've ever done. So other than, hopefully the Fae videos can help you to do that. I currently don't really know what to say on that. Though next time I do work with any Fae, I may ask some questions on that, because I won't lie, that actually kind of interests me too. So many people talk about centaurs and they're very interested in their place in the lore. It's kind of weird that they haven't popped up being worked with anymore. So yeah, I may ask that question and have to make sure that's added into the Fae class, or do a video on them, one of the two. Maybe both. That's one reason I love these live streams. You all bring up things like that I just never thought of. And that's awesome. And I mean, I've seen so many Fae in urban environments, I still find it hard to believe that centaurs avoid it completely. So I'm like, have I just not seen them, not paying attention? Are they good at hiding? What's the deal there? Oh, I was like, quotes? What quotes? The first video for that series will be on Odin, because our very own Peachy came up with the ideal and pitched it to me. Though I think she was joking when she pitched it. So as her ideal, she chose Odin first. And I'm not lying, I am trying to get Mab to agree to a sit down to let me share. The Queen of the Light Fae. It's not that she don't like me, we're just not super close, so I don't know how well that will work, getting her to do a sit down. Because contrary to popular belief, I don't have easy access to all entities. Wish I did. Goblins are very much Fae. I've encountered goblins in the Fae realms quite a bit. Mathis, I currently do have a quick introduction video on Odin. It was one of my earlier first entity videos, so I can't say it's one of my better ones, but it's a good place to get started if you're interested in Odin. I mean, it's not a bad video, but I'm hoping to add more to it this next time around. Whoa. I didn't say she don't like me. I don't spend a lot of time working with the Light Fae. I just don't have that friendship. So it's a little harder to get things done because that friendship really helps. It really helps. That working relationship and that friendship, it helps so much. And when you're talking about an entity like that, they're very emotionally finicky. So even if I can get them to sit down and talk to me, I can't guarantee they'll let me share it. Which, I'll be honest, I should work more with the Light Fae. I really, really should. It's just, for one reason or another, by chance, anytime I've had to work with them, it's always been more the Dark Fae that I was working with. I don't know why. Not plan it that way. It just kind of happened. Though I will say I have been working more with the Light Fae recently because there's quite a few Fae where I live right now. A lot, actually. And many of them are very much Light Fae. And we've been getting along pretty well. So, So we're building a foundation now, which is good. Oh, no problem, Frostfire. For both, actually. I've seen them on both sides of the fence there. And I would almost think that I almost think the numbers are equal. I really do. I mean, it's not like I can sit down and count them. But I do. I think there's an equal split. I do not stink. I do not stink. I showered today and everything. So, but no, I'd say there's an equal split. And I'm actually kind of glad to see more people interested in the Fae. Because there for a while, it all became more of the fluffy side of things that really everybody's like, I'm not dealing with the Fae. And it really shut out so much of the old world lore. And it's just, and then there was a period where it's just like you didn't hear about it. No one wanted to talk about the Fae. And there's such a fascinating group of entities to work with. They're in such a deep culture in and of themselves, not even just how they relate to our world. So I'm actually excited to hear so many people interested in them again. And a little daunted at the concept of presenting a path working for helping people connect with them. So this is going to be as much an adventure for me as you all. Norma, Nomar, sorry. That's a hard one because if you look at my video rules for working with the Fae, as long as you understand the Fae are required to follow their rules and their laws, required across the board. And those rules also extend to those they meet, work with, and blah, 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 blah. That means when you work with them, you fall under that. Now, some of those only apply to, the relationship. But if you actually do journey work into the Fae realms, you fall entirely under that umbrella. So that's really the hardest part to work with them, is making sure you're navigating the Fae laws. But with time, it becomes second nature. You don't even really think about it. So the next thing where people really trip up with the Fae is just how raw they are. we try to place human morality, ideals, and thought processes onto entities that they're not human. They look human. Well, some of them. But their thoughts, their ideals, they're different. And as long as you're willing to learn and actually seek to understand them, they're not hard to work with at all. But if you try to pigeonhole them into human thought processes and humanize them in a way that you expect them to behave and react exactly like us, yeah, they get difficult to work with. But I think that shows the hubris of a lot of practitioners these days to expect that of these entities. I've not read that one. I'll have to look that one up, Mortimer. Like I said, most of my work with the Fae started with the dragons. The Fae and the dragons work together a lot. So when the dragons would be helping the Fae, I would get dragged along. And that's really how my first trips into working with them started. I didn't actually set out to work with the Fae. But I don't regret it because I did make a lot of friends and allies through that process. And that allowed me to meet Fae and different entities that I'm able to ask questions of and learn a lot about their culture. Which for me, that's my favorite part of my practice, is getting able to dive in and learn this stuff. Oh, dear God, don't start now. I mean, there is an entire group of dragons, because dragons, they can work with an energy current, and Fae have their own energy current. So the dragons that I would say reside mostly, I'm sure they move in and out of the Fae realms more. They're not Fae by birth, but since they work with that energy current almost full time, they are considered Fae dragons. And just like all dragons whose appearance shifts and morphs to match the energies they work with, they have a very Fae-like appearance. But oh my God, they're beautiful. So once we get the ruler series done and possibly a few other things, I've considered going back and just seeing if I can get different styles of dragons done by the artist. But I don't know if I got the money to flip the bill for that because this art ain't free. So that may be quite a bit, long time, years off. We don't know yet. But like I said, I am glad to see an interest in them. Because even if my path working only opens the door for more people to work with them and do further research, that for me is a win. Because like I said, I ain't got the time to research at all. I got too late a start in this game, I think. Okay, so any final round of questions? I'll go ahead and do some of the closings. Let's see what we got coming up. Next week's video is actually going to be talking about spell and ritual work, how often you should do it, ways that you can build up your strength so that you can do it more often, stuff like that. That's a question I've been getting a lot. And so I decided to finally go in and do a video on it. Of course, Sunday we do have magical coffee hour. At least that's the plan. Linda hasn't told me something went sideways just yet, so yay. And if it happens, all I do know, and this terrifies me, whatever topic it is based on a video I've released recently, which brought questions to her mind. And in my experience, that usually gets weird. So Sunday night should be an interesting magical coffee hour. Oh, that'd be an interesting video for sure. Oh, there's a lot of names that shift over and overlap. So, I mean, that's one thing about the names when people talk about them. The same entity could have multiple names across multiple cultures. It gets real confusing. And then if you look into the aspect how many of these entities are just different faces of the same entity, it starts getting even more confusing. So depending on how far down the Wonderland rabbit hole you want to go, it gets confusing, and you could probably drive yourself mad with it. And that's why I just kind of focus on each one individually as a friendship, and if it's a different face, it's a different face. But no, I agree. A video on the different ones you've encountered and different ways of classifying them that you've found wouldn't be a bad idea. Because I mean, I've seen many dragon magic practitioners classify the same style dragon differently. Not wrong. It's just they have to explain it as best they can. And since dragons are only really grouped into 9 main elements, when you talk about those little subcategories, the descriptions get infinite. So I always find it fascinating to see the different classifications and viewpoints of other magicians. And sharing that info is how we grow. It's one reason I like talking about my findings and listening to your all's findings and your questions. Oh, I've read it, but it's been so many years ago, I can't, if it's the book I'm thinking about. I think I've read it. Let me rephrase that. Hold on. I think I have. But if I have, it's been so many years ago, I can't remember the details. But yeah, very dogmatic. Oh, no problem, Taro. I'm always happy to help and do what I can. And well, I don't know if you're getting your day started or going to sleep. I don't know where you're at. You could be waking up or going to bed. It gets confusing. But have a wonderful day, whichever direction you're going. So, all right, people, I'm going to hop off here. Hopefully, I will see you Sunday for the magical coffee hour. One way or another, I'm streaming Sunday. Okay? One way or the other, we're doing something Sunday. Hopefully, we will get to see what torture Linda has for me. We do have more videos coming. I am going to try and get the more entity videos coming. And for those asking, yes, I do intend to get a video on Azazel up. I know a lot of you are interested in the work I did with him, the path working, what I know about the entity, those kinds of things. And I am trying to get that video up to you all. But you all do request so many videos, it's hard to get them all up. But it is in the works, and it's actually one of the ones. It doesn't fit with the Fae Norse dragon theme that we kind of got rolling right now. But I'm wanting to slip the Azazel video into the rotation just for fun because so many people are interested. And I don't want to get too predictable. Predictable's boring. Who wants predictable? I don't want predictable. I'm sure you don't want predictable. So, yeah, those are all coming. Currently, the Dragon Magic 102 class, perfectly on schedule. So, stay tuned for more updates on that as it's coming. And I still do not have a release date for the Runic Magic class, though it is in the works and coming. It's coming soon. Both of which should be this year. That much I can say is my goal. And with that, remember to try and do the weekly challenge. Do your meditation distracted. And if you're doing it distracted and you find it easy, up the distraction. Remember, we're flexing our muscles and growing as practitioners here. No matter what type of practitioner you consider yourself as, consider this a exercise, a working out and growth exercise. So find that comfort level and push and grow. All right. And with that, I will see you all Sunday. Take care and have a wonderful evening. And if you can, drop us a like because it helps the channel out a lot. And if you were here in the stream or if you're watching this after, say hi in the comments below. That also helps the channel a lot. We can use all the support and help we can get. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Take care.